Hi guys, I have 5 special cakes to share with you today. The first is a wedding cake I made. I planned to upload this video on Christmas Day, but it was such a hectic day that I ended up in bed instead. Happy Boxing Day! I hope everyone who celebrates had a lovely Christmas. At my house, Christmas was very relaxed. We opened presents in the morning, cooked a roast together, and then just collapsed on the sofa. I did have to do a bit of work, because I had a cake order for the next day. This wedding cake was delivered last weekend to a beautiful venue in Chepstow. December has been packed with wedding cakes for me, and despite the challenges, I'm so grateful that people choose me for their special day. The cake might look big on camera, but it actually fit perfectly in my car. The bottom tier was a large lemon sponge with raspberry jam, and the top tier was vanilla with vanilla buttercream. I apologize for my appearance in this video. I was covered in icing sugar and food coloring after a busy morning of baking. I used my usual piping techniques, adding double ruffles and drop lines. It's important to ensure there are no bubbles in the buttercream. The bride requested pearls, so I added those along with black bows to match the wedding vibe perfectly. Here are a few clips from the beautiful wedding venue. I can't wait to see the professional photos of the cake. Now, for the second cake, this cake is a really special one, you guys, and I know this video is a little bit longer, but I'm just going to have to ask you to trust the process and stick with me. A client ordered a birthday cake for their daughter with an ocean theme and sent over her Pinterest board, which is my favorite thing ever when people have a Pinterest board for their cake. Yes, I love that. It gives me a chance to tie a more unique theme in with a vintage style. It just makes everything more interesting to me. There's a lot going on with this cake, so I definitely had to get creative with space. I made my swags a little bit longer and more shallow than usual to save room for all the fun details and sea creatures. My first thought was to pull out my fondant and chocolate molds to make seashells and fish, but all of her inspiration pictures had only frosting, which is a fun challenge. I decided to do everything with buttercream for a more vintage effect. The only non-frosting detail was purple sprinkles because they made perfect bubbles. As I was finishing up adding the purple sprinkles, I realized the cake didn't look very vintage or adult-like. To fix this, I added drop lines on the swags. This took forever, but it was totally worth it. My frosting behaved well, and I loved how it turned out. However, it still needed something else, so I added another layer of drop lines. This labor of love was worth it in my opinion. Next, I added all the seaweed details. I started by adding a bit more detail on the sides to look like algae, which looks like little pearls. I don't know if there's a specific name for this type of algae, but I know it's a thing. It reminds me of a vintage aquarium cake I made with koi fish, which caused quite a stir because koi are freshwater fish. But hey, it's art. Cakes aren't real, and you can make them whatever you want them to be. Then I moved on to making all the creatures. I started with pink jellyfish. They're so cute and really easy to make. I want to put these on everything now. I made schools of fish in a complementary orange color. I also had the idea of putting a huge octopus on top because the octopus has been my favorite animal since I was 10. I'm scared of them, but I find them fascinating and beautiful. The last creature I added was a starfish. I made a bunch of them in different sizes and colors, which added a lot to the cake. I'm so thankful for this order because it was fun and challenged me in new ways, which I always appreciate. The last shots always look different in real life, let me tell you. I'd love to hear what you think of this cake and your favorite sea creature. Before continue, I have a request. I think I deserve a like and follow or subscribe, so I hope you support me. So, now the third is a large Christmas-themed cake. I didn't realize until I was editing that you can see the shadow of my phone in this video. I'm so sorry. This was filmed around 1 or 2 in the afternoon on a particularly gloomy day, so I had to put a light on, hence the shadow. This is my first Christmas-themed cake of 2024, and it has a slightly different design from my usual retro-style cakes. There are lines running down the side of the cake to help me map out the design I wanted to create. And this design was way harder than I expected. I wanted to go for a window style, which I've seen other bakers do and really liked. Although I messed up a few times, I decided not to include all those clips. My hand wasn't used to this motion, but the bottom part of the windows came more naturally. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out and hope to get better at doing that top ruffle. I'm absolutely in love with the color scheme of this cake. Red, pink, green, and white. This cake was for my customer's daughter's first birthday, and she left the design up to me, which I appreciated. It gave me creative freedom to try new styles. My customer requested large gingerbread men on the cake, which I got from your baking company a couple of weeks ago. These gingerbread men were identical to the ones on the invitations, which made me super happy. Thank you so much, your baking company, for saving the day. I added little bows onto the side of the cake, which I'm obsessed with at the moment. My customer wanted her daughter's name and age on the top, so I did a double-layered effect with the writing, debating whether to use white or green. I think I made the right decision with the double-layered effect. I also added an extra white border onto the top of the cake, as it needed something more. I only tend to add this extra border on my large cakes because it can look crowded on smaller ones. The final step was adding adorable little snowflake sprinkles and some tiny white sprinkles in between to make it look like snow falling down the cake. I'm so excited to make more Christmas-themed cakes. Now for the fourth cake, I decided to make this cake really small. A 6-inch layer that I cut into a square and crumb-coated with buttercream. I don't usually make square cakes, but I know you have to work from each corner to get those sharp edges. For the bow, I cut a bunch of strips of wafer paper and used edible gold mixed with vodka to make edible paint. I recommend letting the strips dry a bit, but I was impatient and put mine together right away. Here's what my bow looks like. Next, I used my edible printer and frosting sheets to print out wrapping paper. I pressed it along the cake and used a fondant smoother to help. This is a delicate process because too much pressure can cause cracks. I used scissors to cut where needed to give it that wrapped effect, and then smoothed everything out again. I repeated the process on the other side, ensuring the cake was completely wrapped. I added a touch of buttercream to the top to attach the bow and placed it directly in the center. Since this was such a small cake, I could easily pick it up. This cake was just for content, so I thought cutting it would be satisfying to watch. The fifth and the last cake is a large round cake. I made this a couple of weeks ago, and it was a very exciting one because we finally had our first 30th birthday in my friendship group. I can't believe my friends and I will be turning 30 over the next couple of years. Luckily for me, I'm the baby of the group, so I'll be last to turn 30 in 2026. Even though it doesn't feel that far away, it's crazy to think it's been 10 years since I went to uni. My mom always said your 20s fly by, and she was definitely right. If someone had told me 10 years ago that this is the job I'd be doing now, I would have laughed. Baking wasn't a hobby I had as a kid. I stumbled upon it by accident. I have moments every week where I think, how is this my job? But I'm extremely grateful to be self-employed. Uni may not have been necessary for me career-wise, but it led me to my amazing friends, and I wouldn't be making this cake for Ryan without that experience. For those familiar with the Archetype book series, you might guess the theme of this cake. It's inspired by the Night Court. I've had this design saved for a long time, originally created baked by Julie Hughes, an incredible baker. It matched perfectly with the Night Court theme, so I decided to make it for Ryan's cake. Funny enough, the Monday after Ryan's birthday, I had to make the exact same cake again, which I didn't mind because I loved making it. Black cakes can sometimes get boring, but the pop of white and gold detailing made this one stand out. The message on top was Flirty 30, which is perfect for Ryan. I double-layered the message, starting with black and going over it with white. My cold kitchen actually helped because the black layer peeled off easily. The piping on this cake was similar to what I usually do, but I added an extra row of piping under the ruffles. I made this cake slightly taller than my usual large round cakes to accommodate the number of people at the birthday celebration. Everyone got a slice except me. I'm not a big fan of cake anymore, probably because of the job. I initially had white shells on the bottom of the cake, but changed them to black as they looked out of place. I didn't do this until the end, so you'll see the white shells for now. Lastly, I added stars using silicone molds I ordered ages ago. I think I manifested making this cake. Thanks for sticking around. I'd love to hear what you think of these cakes. Bye.